Alrighty, so we are going ahead and beginning Unit 5. Okay, you should be on page 283. Okay, so let's go ahead and begin. Alrighty. Whoops. Okay, here we go. Alright, so before we fully begin, I need you to read through this part. All right, it is useful to work with pairs of angles and to understand how pairs of angles relate to each other. Congruent angles are angles that have the same measure. Okay, now let's go ahead and skip on to 284. Okay, go on ahead of 284. Okay, I need you to put a dot here or an arrow, whatever. Vertical angles are the opposite angles formed by two intersecting lines. Vertical angles are congruent because the angles have the same measure. Okay, so what that means is you have some that look like this, and you'll have this angle and this angle. All it means is if this is one, then this is one. That's all that means. Okay, don't get too worked up about it. It's not as confusing as it sounds. If you need to, I want you to go ahead and draw a line for that, and then just put X here, X here. So that means that you know they mean the same thing. Okay, adjacent angles are pairs of angles that share a vertex and one side, but do not overlap. Okay, so that means they look like this. They share a vertex and a side, but they don't actually overlap like that. Okay, complementary angles are two angles whose measure have the sum of 90 degrees. Okay, you should draw that there. All right, supplementary angles are two angles whose measures have a sum of 180 degrees. All right, that's what this is. Right here. Just a line, if I'm being honest. Okay, so these are going to be what you use constantly. Okay, so you need to do a star here. You need to circle it, but make sure you still are able to read the whole thing. Okay, let's go on back here. All right, it says using a ruler, draw a pair of intersecting lines, and you're going to label each one from 1 to 4. Okay, intersecting means that they enter and they cross each other. Oops. So you're going to draw two lines that cross each other. I drew two lines that crossed each other. Okay, and then go ahead and label it. All right, we're doing some geometry now, you guys. All right, so I went ahead and labeled it. Okay, so now it says use a protractor to help you complete the chart. Don't worry about that part. I'm going to go ahead and give you the angles so you don't have to worry about that. Okay, so I'm going to give you angle 1, which is 120. I'm going to give you angle 2, which is 60. All right, I'm going to give you angles 1 plus 2, which is 180. All right, so now if we look at our angles, here's what you got to know. You ready? If everything on this side means the same thing as everything over here. So if 1 is 120, what do you think 3 is going to be? 120. All right, so by taking that, we'll use the same exact logic. If 2 is 60, what do you think 4 is? 60. All right. So now we're looking at our straight line. Okay, so it wants to know angle 1 plus angle 2. So it's asking us to look at this line. This line equals 180. So what do you think angles 2 and 3? You got it, 180. What about angles 3 and 4? 180. All right, what about angles 4 and 1? 180. Okay, and we notate these as not just numbers, so we put our little degree, which is a tiny circle. If you put a circle that's the exact same size, it's going to look like 600 or 1,200. Make sure you have a little circle. Okay, apologies for my handwriting. I'm doing my best. Okay, so let's see. Share results with those students. Don't worry about this part. When two lines intersect to form two angles, what conjecture can you make about the pairs of angles that are next to each other? So all that's asking is if I have angles like this, and I have 1 and 2, what angle fully is this? What's the measure of this line? The measure, it's a sum of 180. Okay, that's all you're figuring out. Is this line here just means 180? That's all it was asking. All right, let's scoot on down here. All right, so things we have to know. Whenever we have these C, D, E, and F, they will be shown over here. So whenever we have this thing here, that means angle. Okay, so it says look at angle it says look at angle A, F, and B. So it wants us to look at this one, A, F, and B. Here, all right, and D, F, E. These are vertical angles, okay? So what that's saying is if this is X, this is X, okay? Adjacent angles just means that they are next to each other, okay? So we have A, F, B, and B, F, D. Okay. All right, now we need supplementary. Let me show you supplementary. We have A, F, B, and B, F, D. Okay. So that is shown in, this one's shown in green, and this one is shown in purple. Okay, I guess I should have done that in a different color. That's okay. All right, so now what it would ask you to do here is it says, looking at angle AFB, what is the angle that sits in there? It's X, okay? And I want to add BFD. All right? So I have 100, so I'm going to add, so I have 180 minus 50. Because remember, my straight line is 180 here, so I just have to subtract 50 to get what the rest of this would be. Okay, so that would end up being 130, right? 130, 40. Oh, I'm sorry, hold on. Whoops, I messed that up. My apologies. Okay, so we're adding our 50 here and our 90 that we have, because this is 50 degrees, and we have our right angle here, which I covered up because I put way too much on this. We have 50 plus 90, and that is where we get our 140 from, okay? And then we're going to equal them to our line, which is 180, and I'm getting 180 from up here, because all of the angles that are straight equal up 180, okay? And then I just solve for X how I normally do. I subtract 140, subtract 140, cancel out what I have, bring everything else down, and that ends up giving me 40. So that's where the X comes from. So that would mean that this little piece here is 40. Okay? Alrighty, so it wants to know what the angle, the relationship between AFB and BFC is. Let's see. AFB is 40, and BFC is 50. So when 40 plus 50 add together, 40 plus 50 equals 90 degrees, so it's a right angle. Or you could be real fancy and put, they are complementary. Okay, all right. Now it wants to know our AFC up here, our AFC and BFC, are those adjacent angles? So are they here? Are these them two? Those guys? No, they are not adjacent because they share this. So they can't share a little piece there. They have to be away from each other. So that means that no, they are not. They overlap. Okay, and when I say that, that means that this, so if I have a side here and a side here, these guys are adjacent angles, okay? But if I were to do this guy and this guy, they both share him, so they can't be adjacent angles because they're both touching the same line. That's all that means, okay? All right, let's go ahead on to our next page. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna use highlighter for this, okay? So that way I can figure out how to, so that way I can tell my lines apart, okay? So we want a pair of supplementary angles, okay? So let's just go ahead and start with F, G, and A, okay? All right, so I have that one, all right? And I need one that is supplementary, so that means it has to share the same line, okay? So they both have to share this side. Okay, so I'm gonna do A, G, and C. And the reason I did that is because in the end, it makes this straight line, which is supplementary, which is 180 degrees. Okay, so when you write it out fully, you have to write it out with your angle sign. So you have angle F, then we went to G, then I went to A, and then I did angle A to G to C. Okay, now I need vertical angles. So I need opposite side angles. Okay, I'm going to do that in a different color. I'm going to choose blue. Okay, so I'm going to do, let's see, we'll do these guys because they're opposites. So I'm going to go ahead and do okay, yeah. I'm going to do A, G, B, and E, G, D, because they're the opposite. All right, so make sure you write it out. So I did angle A, G, B, and E, G, D. Oops, I forgot my little angle. All right, now it wants me to find the angle of CGD. All right, so let's see. Let me go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead and erase this. You don't have to erase yours, obviously, but I'm going to so I can see what I'm doing. All right, so it wants me to find the measure of angle CGD. Okay, so first thing that means I have to find out what goes here. Okay, well, I know that anytime I see this little square here, that means 90 degrees. So I know this is 90. Okay, so now remember, if I have a straight line, how much does a straight line equal up to? A straight line equals up to 180. Okay, now we're gonna put this as X because we don't know what it is. Okay, so now I'm doing 90 plus, I have this one over here, which that number is 35, plus X. Okay, now I just have to solve for my X. So I'm going to combine my like terms, which I have 90 and 35. So I'm going to do 90 plus 35. That's 125 plus, bring down what I have, my x, bring down my 180. Okay, now I'm trying to get x by itself, so I have to subtract my 125, subtract my 125, and my x equals 55. Okay, so that means that the angle measure is 55, okay? So geometry is actually one of my favorite maths because it's kind of like solving a puzzle. So it gives me these things and I just have to figure out what's left, okay? And it's never gonna give you something you don't know. That's the awesome part of it, okay? Go ahead, take some time, look over this example here. Okay, if you can go ahead and pause it. I need you to underline the important parts here. Go ahead and pause it. All right, you should have gone through and underlined this part here. Okay, and they form a straight line. So that means this equals 180. A straight line is always 180. That's where you got this from. Supplementary angles are 180. Okay, and then you should have gone through, excuse me, and we have our 2x, which we got from here. We have our 48, which we got from here. And then we equaled it to 180, which we know is a supplementary angle because it's a straight line. All right, and then we just did our solving for x. Okay, going ahead to the next page. All right, we're going to be going over complementary angles. Complementary angles are right angles, and right angles are always 90 degrees. Okay. So let's go through here. We see our little square here, so we know it's going to equal up to 90, and that's where they get this 90 from. Okay, then I need to figure out what my x is, so that's why they have a 35. Then they put the whole thing here, and they equal it all up to 90. Okay, then they go ahead, add everything together, move it all down like how we do, and they get to x equals 12. Then they go ahead and wherever they have x, that's where they put their 12. So we're getting into a few more steps of this stuff, okay? All right, so now we have to find the measure of the angle down here. All right, so let's go ahead. I'm gonna highlight what I need to, okay? So first thing I have to figure out is, do I have a complementary or a supplementary angle? It looks like, since I have a straight line and I don't see any little squares, that I actually end up having a supplementary. Okay, so that'll be our first step. We have to figure out, is it complementary or supplementary? Supplementary means we're going to equal it up to 180. Okay, remember, complementary would be our little right triangle like this, and that one always equals 90. Okay? So we have our supplementary, which equals 180. So we know whatever it is, we have to equal it up to 180. All right. And then I'm going to just write down what it gives me over here and just transfer it over. So I have 3x, and then that's a positive 54. And so now what do I have to do? Just solve for what? Locate my variable and solve it. So I'm going to draw my line. I locate how many terms I have. I have 3 terms. I'm going to do what's furthest away from my x. So I subtract 54 because I have to do the opposite. If I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other. That cancels out. So I bring down what I have left, 3x. Then I'm going to do 180 minus 54, which is 126. Okay. Then I'm going to, since these guys are squished together, I divide by 3. If I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other. Okay, bring down what I have here, because those cancel out. Now I do 126 divided by 3, and I got 42. So your x should equal 42. Okay, and this is only part 1. Because if you scroll right on down, now it wants to figure out what the 3x is. So that means, since I have x here, I'm going to, wherever I see an x on this, I'm going to put in my answer. Okay? And when these are squished together, what operation are they doing? You got it, multiplying. So we're doing 3 times 42. I'll give you a moment. Do that one. So you got 126. Okay. Excuse me. Alrighty. Corey says that to find angle, what does he have? He says angle JML. You can stop when you get to the solution here. Is that true? Can we just stop when we get to here when we finished? No, we couldn't. Why couldn't we just stop at this step right here? We needed to find out what 3x was. Find out what 3x is. Okay. All right. Go on ahead to our next page. Using angle measures in triangles. All right, you learned earlier that the sum of measures in any triangle is 180 degrees. You can use this properly in many real-world situations. Yes, you can. Okay, so we're going to go through this one. All right, take a moment, read that. The front of the top story of a house is shaped like an isosceles triangle. That's what it's saying in this part here, okay? The measure of the angle at the top of this triangle is 70 degrees, okay? And find the measure of the base angles. Okay, cool. So we know that our very tippy top is 70, okay? Now I have to figure out what my x's are. So first thing I have to do is it says I know that all triangles are 180. So I know I can equal this up to 180. Now I just write in what it gave me. It gave me 70, it gave me an x, and it gave me another x. Okay? So now I'm going to combine my like terms. So let's see. I have my variables. I have 2 x's. Well, I'll just write that down. I have 2 x's. Then I have my 70. Then I have my 180. Okay? Draw my line. Locate my variable, do the opposite. If I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other. Cancel out, bring down what I have left. All right. Then I have 110. Then I divide by 2, and then my x equals 55. Yeah, that's what they got. That's what I got. Okay. I just wanted to show you where they got everything from up here. Like in here, I just wanted to walk you through where they got the 180 from. Okay. And how they got to 2x. It's because they have 2 x's. Okay. All right. Now we're going to go on down here. We're going to find the value of x. Okay. So let me ask you a question. How much does a triangle equal up to? 180 degrees. Okay, so now I'm going to write down everything it's given me. Okay, so it gave me an 80. Whoops. It gave me an 80. It gave me an x. And it gave me a 3x. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I go through and I'm going to combine the terms. So 80 can't go with anything. So, but my x, 3x, and my x can go together because they both have the same buddy. They both are x's. Okay, so how many x's would I have all together? If I have 3 x's over here and I have 1 x here, how many x's is that? 3 plus 1. 4x, you got it. Okay, then I'm going to bring down what I have. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to locate my variable, which is my x. Okay, then I'm going to do its furthest away, which is the 80. Then I'm going to do the opposite, cancel him out, bring down my 4x. Okay. Then I'm going to do the opposite again. And I should end up with 25. Okay, I'm going to give you a moment. Copy this down if you haven't already. Go ahead and pause it if you need to. Alrighty. And we're moving on. Now it wants me to find the measure angles of A and B. Well, angle A is X. I already know what my X is. It's 25. So now I just have to figure out what my angle B is. So it's 3X. So I'm going to do 3 times 25. Okay, and 3 times 25 ends up being 75. Okay, so literally all I'm doing is my substitution. Read these carefully. Okay, when you get to these, read them carefully and make sure that you go back, double check yourself. Okay, don't move too quickly on these. Okay, all right, let's go on to our guided practice. Okay. Let's see, these ones are vocab. So it wants to know which one is complementary and which one is adjacent. Okay? Oops. All right. So the sum of the measures of U, W, and Z. UWV. Okay. And UWZ is 90. Yes, this is true, because I see it right here. Okay. And then it says, so it wants to know if this one's 90, then what would this one be? It would also be 90. So we know that they are complementary. Because complementary equals 90. Okay. And so the other one, it says if they share a vertex, and one side, those guys do not overlap. So it wants to know if this side is X, what's that side? So it wants to know the opposites, which are adjacent. That's all that means. Okay. All right. AGB. Sorry, I thought I had it. AGB and DGE are what kind of angles? Vertical. All right, so if this is 30 degrees, what do you think this will be? 30 degrees. Let me write a little 30 right there. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and fill in down here these guys. Okay, I'm going to give you a moment to do this yourself. So if you could pause the video so they can do this part themselves. All right, so let's go ahead and go over it. So I'm going to go ahead and look through. I'm going to start this over. All right, so I know this is 30. Okay, so wants me to do... So I always have to draw my line so I know where I'm going. C, G, D. Oh, that's easy. That's 50. Okay. My next one is D, G, E. Oh, that one's 30. And my last one, which is E, G, F. That's 2X. Okay. So now I'm going to combine my like terms. Okay. So nothing can go with 2X, but these guys can go together. So what's 50 plus 30? 80. And I bring down what I have. Okay. Looks like it skipped a few steps here. It did. We're going to do it out because that was really confusing. So I'm going to subtract 80. There we go, subtract 80. These guys cancel out. So that ends up being 100. Okay. Then, so my 2x here equals 100. Okay, that makes so much more sense. Okay. Go ahead and fill in this part here. Can you pause it, please, so they can fill that in? Alrighty. Let's go ahead and fill it in. All right, so angle A is x. Angle B is x plus 10. Whoops. And angle C is 40. Alrighty. So now I'm going to combine my like terms. So those go together to make a 2x. These guys come together to make a 50. So it should be 2x plus 50. All right, then I have to locate my variable. Then I have to do one side, do it to the other, do what's furthest away, cross that out, 2x. This comes 130. Okay. Then I divide by 2. Divide by 2. So my x is equal to 65. I think that's, yeah, x equals 65. Okay, so now we go back to where the x's are. There's an x here, so angle A would be 65. Okay, so now wherever I see an x, I also put 65. So what is 65 plus 10? 75. So angle B would equal 75. Okay? All it does is give you what you have. You plug in what you have to solve for what you don't. Okay? Go ahead, skip our essential question. Move on to our 9.1 independent practice. All right, so I would like for you to do, don't do 10, don't do 11. I do want you to do 7, 8, and 9. Yes, do 12. Yes, do 13. Yes, do 14, 15, and 16. Just remember, this here is 90. And we are equaling up to 180. So now you just have to put in what you have left. Okay? And whenever you see these, I need you to go ahead and fully write them out, draw them out, so you know what it's looking for. Okay? All right. Go ahead and do 17 and 18. All right, these are our bonus. Okay, and I do have tutoring Fridays after school. So if you need help with this, if I've moved too quickly at any point in time over this, please come to the tutoring on Friday. Okay, if you need an extension to be able to come to the tutoring on Friday, you have got to ask me. Okay, you can shoot me an email, stop me in the hallway. You can even tell Miss Amy. I'm fine with any of it. Okay, all right. You, if you need to play the video again or go back to a certain part, just let the teacher know. Okay? Alrighty. You guys are doing well, and I will see you in the next